Evan, it was a shock to Sivir and the other members of the Rose mercenary squad that their magic caster, who had fought beside them many times, chose to betray them at such a crucial moment. Evan's hard shove sent Eva staggering and falling to the ground. She looked at Evan, who knelt in front of the demon begging for his life and even wanted to exchange their lives for his own. She was shocked and speechless. The great hero, the powerful, knowledgeable, cool, and handsome elven magic caster, and the man whom she had given her everything turned his back on her without any hesitation. The perfect image he had cultivated collapsed. She couldn't bring herself to believe what she had just witnessed. How bad did a person have to be to do such an unspeakable thing? At this crucial moment of life and death, Eva had finally realized what a scum he was. She laughed hysterically. Mag pressed a button in his pocket and picked Amy up. He took a look at Eva and found himself not feeling sorry for her at all. Then he turned his gaze to Evan, killing intent flashing across his eyes. "You want me to let you live?" The ghost-light demon looked down at Evan, amused. Rarely had he seen such an obedient elf. He held out his foot. "Lick it clean, and I'll let you live." Evan raised his head to look at the foot. It was covered in mud, giving off a stink of rotten corpse. Without a moment's hesitation, Evan moved closer and started licking the demon's foot. "You dirty dog," Scott swore angrily, clutching his sword. The rest of the Rose mercenary squad looked at Evan as if they wanted to kill him themselves. "Hey, old man, do you like the taste of his foot?" Amy asked out of curiosity. Evan stopped, but only for a second. Then he went back to his life-saving job. The demon enjoyed Evan's service so much that he put his killing spree on hold. Many mercenary groups were looking for herbs in the giant canyon 5 or 6 kilometers away. Most of them were weak. They weren't powerful enough to take on magical beasts, so they could only come to the giant valley to try their luck. "Guys, what is that?" a mercenary called out as he dangled from the cliff edge at the mouth of the canyon. "That's a distress flare. They were given out by the Grey Temple today. Someone is in trouble. The elf hunters got them, probably." "What? We're only several kilometers away, it's not safe here." "The people from the City Lord's Castle and the Grey Temple, where are they? Another mercenary group is going to be killed off." The news quickly spread to every corner of the giant canyon, causing a great commotion and panic. Soon, several stronger mercenary groups formed a team, and then dozens of mercenaries rushed in the direction of the basin. One flare after another flew up, dyeing the sky red, which was extremely conspicuous in the wilderness. "The elf hunters are striking again, damn it," Brandley said when he saw the red sky. He was the captain of one of the teams responsible for hunting down the elf hunters, and he happened to be in the vicinity of the giant canyon. "Fire a flare, the giant canyon," he ordered. The flare exploded, producing yellow-colored lights, which turned into a big arrow pointing at the giant canyon. Many Grey Temple personnel rushed towards the canyon. So did many mercenaries who had given up their missions. They were well aware how strong their enemies were, but they could not let those outlaws take another life in the city they loved. Evan licked the demon's foot until there was not a trace of dirt left. He then looked up at the demon with a sycophantic smile. The demon dried the foot off with Evan's face and nodded contentedly. "Good, I've never seen an elf as obedient as you. I didn't intend to kill you. To tell you the truth, from today on, you'll be my personal foot licker." The other demons and orcs burst into a loud guffaw. Evan flushed with anger, but he managed a subservient smile. "Thanks, Master, it's my honor to serve you." Dennis spat and looked at Evan with disgust. "Are you a man or a dog, Evan, you spineless coward?" Scott laughed at Evan. "I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. I wish you a long life as his dog, Evan." A look of disgust came over Sivir's face. She should never have let him join the Rose mercenary squad. Now that he had completely defiled her team, she didn't know how to face her father who had left the team to her. Evan could feel their eyes on him, but he couldn't care less now. He moved closer to the demon on his knees. "Kill them, Master, kill them all," they're too noisy. You can use the 2 women to warm your bed. They will make 2 perfect playthings, and don't spare the kid. Time to go. Those Grey Temple clowns should be on their way now. I love to watch them chasing after me." The demon kicked Evan to one side and looked at the Rose mercenary squad, licking his lip with satisfaction. "Your turn now. Who wants to die first?" They stared warily at the demon. Sivir had a poisoned dagger ready in her left sleeve. Eva was still lying on the ground, staring blankly into space. Mag couldn't tell if she was smiling or crying. When his eyes fell on Mag, the demon smiled. "You, bring the girl to me and lick my other foot clean. I'll spare your life too." Mag frowned. "What if I say no? Then you'll die and she'll still be mine." The demon grinned, revealing his crooked teeth. "No," Mag said calmly. "Then you're dead." The demon raised his right hand, and a ball of green fire appeared in it. Kill them all," Evan screamed, clutching his stomach in pain. "Protect them," Sivir shouted, lifting her boomerang. That was when they heard a griffin's loud cry. The purple creature dived fast like lightning, leaving after images behind it. "What?" The demon's expression changed drastically. He started to raise his head. Yet it was too late. A pair of sharp claws pierced his chest and carried him up into the sky. An instant later, he was torn in half. Blood and ghost flames were spilled everywhere. "No, you're dead." Mag covered Amy's eyes. The dozens of mercenaries from the giant canyon were still running, even though it was only 5 or 6 kilometers. Mountain roads were rugged, so even unicorns couldn't run fast. "Look, what's that?" a mercenary called out suddenly, pointing at the sky. When they looked up, they were astonished to see a winged beast tear a humanoid creature apart brutally. "That's a purple-striped griffin. Could it be the legendary griffin owned by Alex? I don't think there is another purple-striped griffin in the entire world. It's a mutant 10th-tier lightning-type griffin tamed by Alex. It obeys no one but him, but why is it here? We don't need to worry about a thing now that Master Alex is here." The mercenaries were relieved, but they didn't slow down a bit. Yes, their help wasn't needed anymore, but they didn't want to miss out on the chance to watch Alex fight. "Alex is still the man who does what he says," Brandley said with a relieved smile when he saw the purple-striped griffin at the giant canyon. The expressions on the faces of the Grey Temple personnel were different, but most of them were much less worried. "Lord Brandley, it's our duty to catch the guilty. Will Alex's interference affect our reputation?" a magic caster whispered to Brandley. "The reputation of the Grey Temple was built by all of us fighting for the safety of the civilians. We dedicate our lives to protecting the people here. Its reputation won't suffer just because Alex interfered," Brandley said, looking at him coldly. "You should be ashamed of yourself for saying that." The magic caster blushed and bowed his head. "I'm sorry, Lord Brandley, the help was on the way, but the leader of the elf hunters was already dead." The members of the Rose mercenary squad looked at the green flames and green blood spilling everywhere, shocked. The 8th-tier demon had been killed in the most savage way in a heartbeat. The griffin hadn't even given him the chance to do anything. A head with round eyes fell from the sky and rolled. It came up near Evan's feet, the dead eyes staring right at him. Evan stumbled back in shock. His clothes were spattered with green blood. His new master had been torn to pieces. He was so taken aback by the drastic turn of events that he didn't know if he should feel glad or not. "That's Alex's purple-striped griffin," Scott exclaimed happily as he looked up. "Master Alex has come to save us." Thank God, the Rose mercenary squad was over the moon. They assumed a defensive formation. When Alex and Irina were traveling on the continent, they had an abhorrence of sin. The purple-striped griffin was here, which meant Alex was also here, which meant they would be saved. The other demons, orcs, and trolls were too terrified to move. Nobody knew better than them how powerful Alex and Irina were. When wandering elves had been hunted many years ago, nobody had been able to stop the killers. Then Alex and Irina had heard of this. They had tracked down the killers and made sure they had gotten what they had deserved. Many elf hunters had been forced to lie low and hide behind false identities. Now, Alex was back, and he was right here. They didn't see him, but they knew he was here. Fighting was not an option for the outlaws. Not when the spatial demon patriarch had been slain by Alex. Their leader, the ghost light demon, had been torn into shreds. They knew they stood no chance. "Take hostages," shouted a forest troll. A black vine shot out from his body, bound Evan, and dragged him over. The other 5 elf killers regained their composure and charged towards the Rose mercenary squad. They needed leverage if they wanted to survive. The griffin howled as if irritated by them. "Wow, it's so beautiful," Amy said excitedly, peeking through Mag's fingers. "Is it a lion? It is purple and it has wings. Why does its howl sound so much like that of Daphne's dog?" "Is her dog a husky?" asked Mag. "Yes, but how do you know that, Father? Have you seen her dog? It's very stupid. Its specialty is tearing stuff up." Daphne's grandfather said he would stew it this winter. She was very sad, but I told her to save me some stew. "Dog stew is good, but dog hot pot is much better." Mag had only eaten dog hot pot once. Everyone looked at Mag and Amy as if they were crazy. This was hardly the time or place to discuss food. Mag was calm all the while. Everything was going according to his plan. The demons and orcs thought they were the hunters and he the prey. They couldn't have been more wrong. Boom! A purple golden lightning ball came out of the griffin's mouth and exploded into 5 bolts of lightning, striking down. No, 4 lightning bolts hit 2 orcs and 2 trolls, reducing them to ashes in an instant. The last demon managed to stop at the last moment. He summoned a shield of some kind before himself, which then pushed him back, allowing him to miss the lightning bolt by inches. Then he let out a cry in horror, rushed into the cave nearest to him, and disappeared in an instant. The griffin was displeased. It shot out a lightning ball at the cave angrily, causing it to collapse. Mag looked at the collapsed cave and smiled. Such strong power, the members of the Rose mercenary squad breathed a sigh of relief, looking up at the griffin with great admiration. Such a powerful creature! And it was only Alex's steed. Alex's power had to be even more incredible. The forest troll fell back 2 steps in horror. He lifted a sharp vine to Evan's chest. "Don't come any closer," he shouted to the griffin, his voice shaky. "Or I'll kill him." The griffin looked at the troll and Evan with its purple golden eyes, not knowing what to do. The forest troll's face lit up. This hostage of his was the only chance of him getting out of this alive. Evan's face was deathly pale. He was worried that the griffin might kill him along with the troll. "Master Alex," he called out to the griffin. "I'm an elven magic caster. You said you would protect all the elves outside the wind forest. Please do as the troll says." Seeing that Evan was useful, the forest troll didn't gag him. It had been a perfect day for the elf hunters, until the griffin had come to try to kill them all. Dennis spat. "I'm surprised that you still remember you're an elven magic caster. Do you remember the part where you licked that demon's foot and wanted to kill us all?" "You dirty dog," Scott said through gritted teeth. They all looked at Evan with disgust. He had betrayed them all. He had even wanted to exchange their lives for his. He had no one else to blame but himself for his dire situation. Nobody felt sorry for him. Evan's eyes searched in the crowd and saw his last hope. "Eva, help me," he called out. "Don't let them kill me. I love you. I know you have always been good to me. I'll marry you when we get back." Evan pushed herself to her feet, her eyes glazing. Then she ran off, muttering, "Men, liars, liars." "Eva," Evan watched despairingly as she ran away. "I'll get her back," Sivir said, running after Eva. The forest troll looked scared. His hostage had turned out to be useless. The vines binding Evan grew tighter. He pressed the sharp vine up to his chest. A new wave of pain shot through Evan. "Help, help me," he cried in agony. "Dogs are loyal. You're not a dog. You're nothing but a piece of sh*t." Mag snapped his fingers as Evan stood there struggling. The hesitation in the griffin's eyes disappeared. It flew towards the troll, lightning quick. "Die, the troll screamed, piercing Evan's heart. Poisonous thorns grew out of his huge body, which had swollen up in an instant. It looked like he was going to explode. However, the griffin didn't give him the chance. Sharp claws sank into his neck, tearing his head off the shoulders. Blood shot out everywhere. The headless body shrunk and fell down. Except for one that had escaped into a cave, all 7 elf hunters had been killed, including an 8th-tier demon. The members of the Rose mercenary squad were too shocked to speak. The griffin did a lap in the air and howled excitedly at them as if asking for praise. It then flew up along the side of the cliff and disappeared into the distant sky. "It's so fast," Amy said, wonderstruck. "I wish I could get the chance to ride it someday." Mag stroked her head, confident that she would get her wish. "Me too," Dennis said, looking up. "I can't grant you your wish, pal," thought Mag. The members of the Rose mercenary squad were not surprised that Alex had never showed up. His griffin had proved to be more than enough to take care of the elf hunters. The basin was quiet again. The ground was covered by bodies and blood and ashes. Animals and magical beasts were still shivering in their caves. Every member of the Rose mercenary squad was grateful to have survived. Evan lay on the ground, dead, his eyes wide open. They were not sorry that he was dead, instead, they felt good. To think that they had been friends with such a despicable man for 3 months. Sivir brought Eva back, but she was not doing well. She tore at her hair like crazy, still muttering, "Men, liars, liars, Eva is not well. We should get back to the city as soon as possible," said Sivir. She took a look at Evan's body, and then turned to face Mag. "Will you go back with us, Mag? Mag?" They looked at Mag and Amy, wondering why they had remained so calm when their lives had been in grave danger. "We'll stay here," answered Mag. "There might be more fun stuff to see. The Grey Temple guys should be here any minute now, so we should be safe here." "Yeah, I want to see more fun stuff," Amy said, clapping her hands. Sivir looked at Mag like he was crazy. No one in their right mind would want to stay here after what had happened. Mag had a point, though. Right now, no place was safer than this crime scene, which would be swarming with Grey Temple personnel soon enough. Sivir nodded. "What do you want to do with the golden scale deer?" The Rose mercenary squad had suffered a great loss. Evan was dead and Eva had gone crazy. The deer might be able to fetch enough money for her to hire a magic caster and a healer. Mag looked at the dead animal which had been scared to death. "I'll take its horns." Sivir nodded. She walked over to the deer, crouched down, and slipped her dagger free of its sheath. One slash, and the 2 golden horns about 30 centimeters long came right off. She handed them to Mag. "I'll bring half the money to your restaurant." Mag nodded. Thanks. He liked it when people would take care of business for him. He put the horns in his bag. Sivir turned to her men. "The Grey Temple will want to ask questions. Monkey, you come with me. We'll get Eva back. The rest of you stay here. There are still elf hunters out there. I think do everything you can to help the Grey Temple catch them." They nodded. Monkey picked up the deer, and then they made their way back to their carriage. "Bye, big sister leather shorts," Amy said, waving her little hand. Sivir waved back. "Bye, Amy." "No need for all of us to stay here," Mag said. "We'll go up the cliffs. The view is much better there. Bye, guys. Given the fact that we survived this together, can you give us a discount when we go eating in your restaurant?" Dennis asked, smiling. Mag shook his head. "I'm afraid I can't, but you can come over to my house on my rest day, and I'll cook something for you." "Great. Count me in." "You're one hell of a guy, Mag," they laughed, putting behind the horror that they had just experienced. Mag ran into Brandley when he carried Amy to the top of the cliff. "Mag, Amy, what are you doing here?" "We're here for some ingredients. We partnered up with the Rose mercenary squad, and then a bunch of lunatics jumped out of nowhere, trying to kill us. Can you believe that? Luckily, a griffin came and saved us. I honestly don't know if we're lucky or unlucky." Amy nodded. "It was a big flying lion." "I see," Brandley replied. He and his men had bumped into the leader of the Rose mercenary squad, but because she had had to get Eva looked at, they hadn't asked her too many questions. Besides, there were other members of the Rose mercenary squad waiting in the basin. "Are you all right? Are you hurt?" he asked with concern. Mag shook his head. "Thanks to the griffin, we're unharmed." Then he touched Amy's head. "But Amy hasn't recovered from her shock yet, so we want to go home. You'll find several members of the Rose mercenary squad in the basin. I'm sure they will provide you the answers to the questions you may have." Amy pressed her head against Mag's chest, acting shocked. "I want to go home, father. I'm glad that you're okay." Nobody knew what Krasu and Urian would do if anything had happened to Amy. It made Brandley's heart ache to see Amy so unhappy. "I'll have some of my men see you home. Don't come out here again. It's too dangerous, especially for Amy." "No need. You need your men more than I do. Many people are coming here. We should be safe. The horse will take us back," Mag said, pointing. Brandley hesitated a moment. He did need his men to track down all the elf hunters. "All right, travel safe." Mag nodded. "We will. You should be careful too. A demon escaped into one of the caves down there." Brandley's eyes lit up. "We'll catch and question him." With that, he moved quickly towards the basin with his men. "Why did you lie to them, father?" Amy asked in Mag's arms, looking up at him with a confused look. "Because we're going to save the world." Mag lifted Amy onto the horse and then swung up into the saddle. He glanced back at the basin, put his heels into his horse, and broke into a gallop, racing down a small road. "Save the world, like fighting baddies?" She sounded very interested. "Yes, they're very bad, and we're going to teach them a lesson." The horse passed through a dry river valley. They didn't see anyone along the way. They went west and finally stopped at the top of a cliff. Amy looked around. "Where are the baddies?" "First, we need a better mount." Mag looked up at the sky. The purple-striped griffin dived down with a howl. "It's that flying lion," Amy exclaimed happily. The griffin was excited to see Mag. It swooped down quickly to him, but when it heard Amy, it slowed considerably. Finally, it landed a few meters away from Mag and Amy and did a lap around them warily, staring at the girl like she was dangerous. It then took to the air again, hovering not too high above them. Mag was surprised. He wanted to laugh. Apparently, the griffin was afraid of her, even though it was much bigger and more powerful. "Ozzy, come on down," Mag called up. The griffin looked from Mag to Amy and ventured a little closer. "Ozzy, that's a cute name. Do you know him, father?" Mag nodded. "It's an old friend." Then he turned to his mount again. "Come down, Ozzy." It was hard to believe that a 10th-tier griffin which had torn a demon to pieces would be so afraid of a little girl. Hesitantly, the purple-striped griffin flew down beside them. Despite its fear of Amy, it edged closer and rubbed its head against Mag's shoulder. "Wow, it's so cute, I want to pet it too," Amy said, reaching out a hand. Yet before Amy's hand could reach it, the griffin retracted its head swiftly, staring at her as if she would kill it. Mag didn't understand. "This is Amy, Ozzy, my daughter. She won't hurt you." "Ozzy, be a good griffin and let me pet you," Amy said, whipping out her magic staff. "Or I'll crack open your head." Frightened, the griffin thrust its head into her hands right away. "That's a good griffin." Amy stroked its shivering head, her smile as bright as her shining staff. "Mag," soon Ozzy stopped shivering and started enjoying her stroking. Mag watched and smiled. He hadn't figured out why it was so afraid of Amy, but it seemed they were getting along well now. "Father, Ozzy killed those bad people because you gave it orders, right?" Amy asked as she touched the griffin's fluffy head. Mag nodded. "Yes. Even your pet is so powerful," she sighed deeply. "Ugly duckling is too fat. Even if it becomes a swan, it will be a very fat one. I don't think it will be able to fly, let alone fight." The imagery of a round ball of an orange cat flying brought an amused smile to Mag's face. He put Amy down on the ground and took out some black clothes. "We're going to kill some bad people and save those that are being held captive," but heroes never reveal their true identities, so we need to disguise ourselves. Like the heroes in the legends, I heard a legend, a hero with a mask rescued a lot of people in trouble, but left no name. Yes, so you can't tell anyone what we're about to do, and don't say a word after we get there. Can you do it? Mag asked solemnly. Amy nodded. Yes, father. That's my girl. They dressed themselves in black, put on masks, and climbed onto the griffin's back. Let's go. Mag patted his mount's back. Ozzy, take us to those guys' hideout. Let's go, Amy said with elation as she raised her hands high into the air. The griffin flapped its wings and took to the air, disappearing into the distance in a short while. Their horse was tied to a tree, still shaking with fear. The people of the Grey Temple were now in the basin, examining bodies and searching for clues. Several men were looking for the escaped demon in the collapsed cave. Brandley had a lot of questions for the members of the Rose Mercenary Squad, who were the first survivors of the elf hunters. A demon escaped into that cave, and then the griffin collapsed it with a lightning ball, said Dennis. We don't know if the demon is dead or not. Some of the caves here are huge and have multiple entrances. He might have escaped through one of them. He still had some lingering fear as he thought back to the scene. Brandley nodded. Thanks, we'll take it from here. Go home and get some rest. We may have more questions later. Anything we can do, just ask. You know where to find us. Found him, a man called out suddenly. Several more men rushed into the cave immediately and carried out the lightning-blackened demon, who was still smoking. One of his legs had been crushed by rocks. He was dying, but they still tied him up with spirit-binding rope. Brandley walked over to the demon. Fix him and make him talk. I want to know where they are hiding. 15 kilometers to the west of the basin, there was a big mountain. To the west of the mountain was a nearly vertical cliff. Under the cliff was a canyon, which was filled with dense fog all year round. Visibility was down to several meters in the fog. There was a thick forest in the canyon. Few people had come to this place over the past hundreds of years, so the trees here were massive. The purple-striped griffin landed quietly at the mouth of the canyon. Mag jumped off the griffin and lifted Amy off. This fog is so thick, Amy said, trying to grab the fog. Mag nodded, sword in hand. This place is hard to find. His abnormally good eyesight enabled him to see 100 meters in this fog, and the ones who had reached the 10th tier could see through this fog like it wasn't even there. Mag crouched down and looked at Amy. Our first task is to rescue the hostages. While doing so, protect yourself and make sure that no one will find out who we are. Only use the cold domain magic and leave the rest to me. Amy nodded solemnly. Yes, Father. Mag turned to face the griffin. You are the fastest, Ozzy. I don't let anyone escape. Ozzy nodded, even though it seriously doubted anyone could escape from Mag. Let's go, Mag said quietly. He rushed towards the depths of the forest without making a sound. Suddenly, his sword was free of its sheath, and in the blink of an eye, he sheathed it again. A demon fell down, his head severed from the body. Behind Mag, Amy flew deftly and quietly through the trees with her golden wings, gazing at Mag's back with great admiration. Silent killing was happening in the dense forest. Sentries hiding in the woods were killed by Mag one by one. Deep in the forest, in the middle of the canyon, there was a big cave at the foot of the cliff. At the entrance of the cave stood several wooden houses. A dozen or so orcs and demons were patrolling with nervous looks on their faces. In a room inside the cave, a young orc was looking at a strong-looking orc with a terrified expression. Master Jean, what do we do now? Boss is dead. That griffin tore him apart as if he were a chicken. They are all dead. Alex is coming for us. It's not safe here. We should run while we still can. Shut up, Jean shouted. He paced around restlessly. He tried to calm himself down, but failed to prevent his hands from shaking. They hadn't expected Alex to come here. Their boss, the ghost light demon, had taken most of the stronger fighters with him. Now that they were all dead, there was no way he could hold this place. He was only at level 7. 2 of his subordinates were at level 6, and the rest of them were all below level 6. There was no difference between level 7 and level 1 to Alex. Not one of them could withstand one blow of his sword. Even the spatial demon patriarch had been killed by Alex. Maybe no one on the whole continent was stronger than Alex. He was scared, but he knew he couldn't let it show, or else his men would panic and try to run away. He needed them to hold Alex off while he fled. He had been hunting elves for over 20 years. He had experienced the good life of making big money every day, and he had been chased by Alex and Irina. He knew too well the inevitable ending of a mercenary group targeted by Alex. "How many people know boss is dead?" Jean asked. "Probably everyone by now, but I told no one it was Alex who did it." Good. Jean patted him on the shoulder, and suddenly he covered his mouth and thrust a black bone dagger into his heart. The young orc's eyes went round, and an instant later, his chest stopped moving. Jean put him on the ground and wiped the blood off his hand with the dead orc's clothes. "You served me well, but I want to live too." His voice was shaky with fear. Then he walked out of his room with a heavy-looking axe, closed the stone door, and made his way to the exit of the cave. There were many small rooms in the big cave. Many were empty, but some were occupied by elves. They were imprisoned in separate rooms, curling up in a corner and looking out through the iron bars from the corner of their eye whenever they heard footsteps. They prayed the footsteps would never stop at their door. They were gripped by despair and fear. They had watched as their teammates had been brutally slaughtered. Some of the female elves had been tortured and abused to death. Those who were still alive didn't know if they could live to see another day. Some had committed suicide, while the others had chosen to live because they were afraid of death, and because they were still hopeful. They believed Chaos City would not leave them to die here. They didn't know how long they had to wait. Another female elf was found dead in her cell this morning. She had killed herself. As such, they had been tied up by spirit-binding rope, their mouths gagged. Now they couldn't end their own lives even if they wanted to. Demons and orcs patrolled the cells, hitting and abusing anyone who wouldn't behave. "Those Grey Temple clowns killed boss and are coming for us," Jean said to the demons and orcs at the cave gate when he walked out. "We must evacuate. Go gather everybody, kill all the elves and women, and get ready to leave." They still couldn't bring themselves to believe that their boss had died after telling them to prepare good food and women for his return. "Master Jean, why don't we take the elves with us?" a demon asked hesitantly. "We could sell them when we get back to the Demon Islands. They're worth a lot." "Yeah, we need money to lay low for a while," a forest troll agreed. Jean thought a moment, and then nodded. "All right, you go get the others, and you go inside and watch the elves. Don't let them escape." They did as he said. Some of them went into the cave, and the others went to gather the rest. Jean looked back at their cave and started to walk off with his axe. Suddenly, he heard a dull thud. "Where do you think you're going?" asked a mocking voice in the dense fog. Jean's face suddenly changed. His steps froze, and his whole body began to tremble as if he had heard the devil's voice. His forehead was sweating, but he dared not turn around. Mag emerged from the fog with his bloody sword. He narrowed his eyes as he looked at the big orc who was standing still at the entrance of the cave. This was a level 7 demon, one level higher than he was. However, the orc was apparently the one who was scared **+, which he found very amusing. "Why don't you kill yourself and save me the trouble?" Mag asked, walking slowly towards Jean, the fallen leaves rustling under his feet. As death approached him step by step, more and more cold sweat came out of Jean's forehead. He had heard no warning shout, which was quite unsurprising. If a sentry had managed to give a warning shout before Alex got to him, it would have been most surprising. He didn't want to die, but he couldn't think of anyone who had escaped from Alex and Irina. Even the Karam mercenary group, which had had 3 level 10s, had been destroyed in one night. Not even one had survived. It was all Jean could do not to let the heavy exe drop from his shaking hand. He was only a level 7. He stood 0 chance against Alex. Sweat started to trickle down his cheek. His mind had gone blank. He couldn't come up with any plan to help his situation. He was beginning to regret suggesting coming here to hunt elves. Mag stopped about 3 meters away from him. "So you have chosen to let me do it for you? I'll kill you," shouted the demon. His eyes suddenly turned blood red, and he grew bigger as his muscles swelled. He stomped his foot and whirled, cracking the ground, and brought his axe down with all his weight behind it. The axe blade was shining red. There was so much energy around it that it seemed to have distorted space. Mag looked grave. This orc might be stronger than anyone he had ever fought alone. Yet he was calm, because he was only one step away from reaching level 7. On top of that, his blow might be unstoppable, but at the same time, he was leaving himself wide open. The orcs were known for their power, which could be compared with that of forest trolls. However, they were huge, so they lacked combat skills, even though they might be quick. Mag bent his legs and leapt, leaving a dent in the dense fallen leaves on the forest floor. He dodged the axe crashing down towards his head and brought his sword up in a vicious backhand cut. The swift slash slit Jean's throat and took half of his head off. The axe hit the ground with a bang. Jean fell down, staring with wide and confused eyes at the man in mask and black cloak. Mag was fast, but not that fast. There was no way he had reached level 10. This man was not Alex. Because Alex didn't need to dodge his attack. Then who was he? That was a question whose answer he would never know. He drew his last breath and died, his eyes wide and staring. Battle experience is handy, especially when it comes to fighting those who are all brawn and no brains, Mag thought, looking at Jean's body. The stronger a man was, the more important his battle experience was. With accurate judgment and powerful fighting skills, Mag had easily killed an orc who was one level higher than him. Mag wasn't too pleased with himself, though. He knew that he would have a hard time defeating an experienced 7th tier knight, and a level 7 magic caster might have killed him before he could even get closer enough. Amy flew over, gazing admiringly at Mag. "You're so strong, father, killing them is as easy as swatting flies for you." "You're up, Amy, get ready," Mag said, and walked into the cave, sword in hand. The orcs and demons in the cave had heard the fight outside. They looked terrified, wondering how the Grey Temple had found their hideout so fast. The imprisoned elves raised their heads and listened carefully. They could see from the looks on the demons' faces that they were scared. They thought the Grey Temple had come to save them. When all became quiet outside again, the gang of a dozen or so demons and orcs stood still with their weapons, not knowing what to do. "Get them out of their cells now, we can use them to negotiate with the Grey Temple," shouted a demon, who looked like a leader of some kind. They did as he ordered, hurriedly dragging the elves out and pressing daggers and knives to their throats. Nervous and frightened, they looked to the entrance of the cave. Bound and gagged, the elves stared hopefully at the cave's mouth. Even if they would be killed, they would die in peace knowing the orcs and demons would get what they deserved. That was when a man in a black suit with a black and white mask appeared in the cave, holding a long sword in his hand. The demons and orcs were surprised to see only one man. Suddenly, a demon recognized the sword and went white. "That sword, he's Alex, the god of slaughter." Alex, the god of slaughter. All the demons and orcs started shivering with fear despite themselves. Some even dropped their weapons. The elves gazed at the man in surprise. He was hiding behind his mask, yet his sword was too well known not to be recognized. "I sentence you to death," Mag said in an emotionless voice, darting forward like a black shadow. Mag didn't offer them a chance to negotiate. The orcs and demons were so terrified that they were barely able to hold their weapons. "Kill them," the demon said fiercely, bringing his sharp claws down at an elf's neck. He decided to take the elves with them now that he had no chance to live. The other demons and orcs thrust their knives at the elves without hesitation, clearly they had made the same decision. Abruptly, they stopped moving, as if frozen. The claws and knives were stopped just in time. They were only millimeters away from the elves. All of them had fallen under the influence of Amy's magic. All but Mag the Black Shadow made a dozen or so slashes as he ran through them swiftly. All this took no more than a few seconds. Then Mag sheathed his sword and Amy undid the spell. Blood was shooting out everywhere as heads fell off their necks. Their dead bodies hit the ground with dull thuds. Mag looked back at Amy and nodded. He couldn't have killed them so quickly and saved all the elves without her help. He dropped his gaze to the bodies. The bloody sight made him feel sick, but the battered elves, who were now drenched in blood, were looking up at him with eyes so grateful that he felt it was all worth it. A knife flew out of Mag's hand and severed the ropes that bound the elves. They fell into the pools of blood, too weak and fatigued to ungag themselves, let alone stand up. They had gone many days without eating anything. "They're all dead. You're safe now. The Grey Temple will be here soon," Mag said, putting away the knife that had flew back and making his way to the entrance. "Poor elves," Amy said in a low voice. "Why don't we help them, Father? We have helped enough. Besides, heroes are not medics, we should leave the rest to professionals, like healing magicians." Mag picked her up and stroked her head. A flare shot up above the dense fog and exploded into bright red flames. The purple-striped griffin flapped its wings and disappeared into the clouds. 15 kilometers west of here there is a canyon filled with fog. Kill me, please," the demon entreated the Grey Temple personnel, who were holding the most dreadful instruments of torture in the basin. It was the 20th time he had been revived. They had tortured him in the most vicious ways. They were relieved. After a good hour of interrogating, the demon finally talked. We do now, Lord Brandley?" a man asked. That was when they saw the flare. Brandley looked surprised. "That seems to be where their hideout is. Let's go," he ordered. "Someone found that place before us. How can this be possible?" "It's possible if it's him," replied Brandley. "Are the flying mounts here yet?" "Yes, my lord." 2 huge ironback eagle landed at their feet. After they climbed onto their backs, the eagles took to the air and flew west. They arrived at the place in a matter of minutes. The flare was still burning red. "Blow away the fog," Brandley ordered. Wind-type magic casters cast some spells and dispersed the fog right away. The 2 ironback eagles dived down. "Prepare to battle," Brandley shouted as soon as he saw the bodies lying around. They jumped off. Dead trolls, orcs, and demons. Some were lying in bushes, the others hanging from trees. There was only one wound on each corpse. Apparently they had been killed by a sword, and a very sharp one at that. The killer was fast, there was no sign of any struggling. The knights that had come with Brandley were stunned. They could tell how good the swordsman was just by looking at the wounds. "There are no survivors in the forest," a magic caster told Brandley. "Check the cave, be careful," Brandley said after taking a look at the orc, whose head had been split in 2. He went in front, followed by his men. They were greeted by the stench of blood the moment they entered the cave. They became tense. When they ventured in further and saw the severed heads and bodies, they were struck dumb. They had seen many crime scenes, but this one took the cake. 2 female magic casters turned away, doubled over, and threw up violently. Clearly some brutal killing had happened here. They didn't know if the elves were alive or dead. "Medics!" Brandley shouted. They held back their urge to vomit and lifted them out of the blood pool. "They are all alive," someone called in a surprised voice. They carried the elves out of the cave. Their clothes were soaked in blood, but it was not their blood. Alex saved us," an elf said weakly after the gag was taken out of her mouth. After making sure there was no one around, Mag landed on the top of the cliff where he had summoned the purple-striped griffin. He took Amy in his arms and jumped off the griffin's back. They then took off the black suits and masks. "Ozzy, you can go back now," Mag said, stroking its head. Ozzy rubbed its head against his hand, giving him a wistful look that said it didn't want to leave. Amy patted it on the head. "Go ahead." It flapped its wings, circled around above their heads, and disappeared into the distance. Time to get back. Mag calmed down the horse that had been spooked by his griffin, lifted Amy onto its back, and rode towards Chaos City. You're not only a great chef, father, but also a hero who fights bad guys, Amy said as she looked back at Mag with admiration written all over her face. Mag smiled. Yes, I am. Fighting against crime is my other life. I have many enemies, Amy, so nobody can know this. Don't tell anyone what happened today. Let's keep it a secret between you and me. Amy's eyes brightened. A secret between us? Great. That means I have a secret now. Don't worry, father, I won't tell anyone. That's my girl, Mag said, stroking her head. The restaurant has been successfully upgraded, said the system. Changes to the second floor have been made as planned. By the way, you've maxed out your credit card, so don't forget to pay it off by the 10th of next month. What if I don't pay? Mag asked curiously. If you fail to pay it off in time, your credit rating will go down, and your credit limit will be decreased. If you don't have enough money, you can always pay by installments. Don't worry, the interest rates are very low. You're plagiarizing Jack Ma's ideas. Mag said, pursing his lips in disapproval. I'm not plagiarizing, I'm just borrowing, the system corrected. Then the system started promoting various projects for Mag to invest in, but since Mag was well aware how money-grubbing the system was, he had no interest in any of its projects. After riding into the city, Mag went straight to the guild with Amy, but he didn't see anyone from the Rose Mercenary Squad, so he asked a groom working in the guild stable to return the horse to the Rose Mercenary Squad. Horses were important to mercenaries, yet Mag had a bicycle and a griffin, so he had no need to keep a horse. A horse was more expensive to take care of than a car. He could use that money for more important purposes. Besides, no mount was cooler than his purple-striped griffin. When Mag came out of the guild, many mercenaries were chatting at the gate. I heard another mercenary group had gotten ambushed near the giant canyon, said a fat mercenary. Do you know the details? You heard right. I was there, said a middle-aged man with a beard. When I arrived, the crime scene had been sealed off by the Grey Temple, though. But I heard those killers failed this time. Failed? But they had never failed before. The bearded man raised his voice. That's because they had been lucky, but they knew their luck had run out when they saw Alex descending from the heavens like a deity. He delivered justice and killed all of them. Alex. They were first surprised, and then relieved. They were very certain the elf hunters had no chance of surviving Alex. With lightning in one hand and a sword in the other, Master Alex killed them all in an instant, the bearded man said as if he had seen it with his own eyes. Mag chuckled. Lightning? I'm not a magic caster. He ought to have his head examined. The man heard his laughter and turned to find Mag passing by. Why are you laughing, bro? Master Alex has rid us of those vermin. Now it's much safer for us to go out. You should be grateful and show some respect. Mag gave a wry smile. You're right. He sure deserves our respect. The bearded man nodded with a smile. You can say that again. Then he got back to telling the exaggerated story to his fellow mercenaries. As Mag walked through the front yard of the guild, he found almost everyone was talking about how Alex had saved the Rose Mercenary Guild, but all versions of the story were incredibly exaggerated. Are they talking about you, father? Amy asked curiously as she looked up at Mag, holding one of his fingers. Mag shrugged. Maybe. They totally adore you. Amy felt very proud to be his daughter. It was dark when they got back home. Someone changed our restaurant, father. Amy exclaimed in surprise as she looked at the building which had become twice its original size. I had someone renovate it for us because the old one was too small. Mag also looked surprised. The simple two-story building next door had been completely changed by the system. The common wall between the two houses had been removed. The decoration style hadn't changed much, though. They had 32 tables now instead of 16. Between two tables stood a wooden shelf, on which beautiful green plants were placed. The wooden shelves and green plants were just to Mag's liking. They had made the restaurant even more stylish and classy. The shelves made each table a bit more private, and they wouldn't block the view. The environment was more engaging than before. When Mag was about to walk into his new restaurant, Mabai came out of his forge. "That's some renovation right there. I heard some noise, but when I came out, the renovation was done and the building has totally changed. Talk about efficiency." Mag smiled at Mabai. "I had it renovated by a magic caster. He's really expensive and morbidly obsessed with making money, but he is pretty good at his job." "No, you're morbidly obsessed with making money," the system protested angrily in Mag's head. Mag ignored it. Mabai nodded. "I see." He looked the new restaurant up and down. "Will food be served quicker now that it's twice as big as before?" "I'm afraid not. But good news is it'll be easier to get a seat." Although Mabai lived next door, he was always too busy working to have time to wait in line. Most of the times the restaurant was closed before he even got a chance to order. Mabai sighed. "I really miss the days when you had only several customers every day. Now I have to wait a long time to get food." Mag smiled. "But it's worth waiting. You can't deny that." Mabai nodded with a smile. "That I can't. I don't mind waiting a long time as long as I can get the food." Then he looked around furtively before walking over to Mag. "Mag, I could really use some beer," he whispered. "Just one glass will do. I don't need anything else." "You haven't eaten yet, have you?" asked Mag. Mabai looked confused. "No, I haven't. I have just finished working." "Then why don't you come have dinner with us? I'll drink with you. I want to thank you for selling me the store. You were the first customer to come to our old restaurant, and I'd like you to be our first customer again." Mabai laughed heartily. "Thanks." "Meow!" Ugly Duckling cried as soon as Mag opened the door. It leapt into Amy's arms, eyes full of grievance. All right. I'll take you with me next time. But from today on, you'll have to go on a diet. Your food will be halved. It's for your own good. I don't want you to become too fat to fly," Amy said solemnly, carrying the cat inside. Meow! Ugly Duckling looked up at her with sorrowful eyes. "Whining and begging won't work. I've made up my mind." Amy walked around the new restaurant, looking at the green plants on shelves and hung with hemp rope. Mag went upstairs and changed into his chef's uniform. He put on the apron and opened the door to the kitchen. It was rectangular and 2 times its original size. The old kitchen had become too small after being crammed with a fridge, water tanks, and various kitchenware. Knives were stored in the knife holder which was hanging on the wall. The grill was placed in the corner. 4 woks were arranged in a row. All the kitchenware were arranged based on Mag's preferences. The width of the kitchen had been increased by about half a meter, so it was now large enough for 4 cooks to work at the same time without getting too crowded, and there was room for more kitchenware. Of course, the most eye-catching was the mud oven beside the grill, which was exactly the same as the oven he had used in the test field to cook roast ducks. Mag walked up to the mud oven and nodded with satisfaction. The system never ceased to amaze him. Perhaps nobody understood what he wanted better than it did. Mag had a big plate of beef kebabs and a large spicy grilled fish ready in no time. They drank the bubbly beer and chatted. Mabai was his first customer, his neighbor, and his first friend in this world. The dwarf blacksmith told Mag why he was hell-bent on killing that red dragon. Mabai's father was an excellent blacksmith. The weapons he forged were very popular. Mabai learned from his father and became a blacksmith too. He then married and had children, and lived a peaceful and happy life. The happy life didn't last very long, however. One day, a dragon attacked their tribe and killed many innocent dwarves, including his father. 3 years later, he left the tribe and embarked on the journey to search for the dragon alone. He could not bear the fact that his father and people had been killed without cause. He wanted revenge, or he would never find peace. He had searched for over 100 years without success. Never once had he returned home. The war among species was over, and the Norland continent had seen 100 years of peace, but he was still on his path to revenge. Mabai drank the glass of beer in one gulp, his big bottle nose red. "That damned red dragon! I will kill it with my own hands," he said firmly. Mag filled up his glass, looked at him, and said nothing. He didn't want to try and persuade him to put aside his enmity and go back home to check on his family. Maybe Mabai's choice was not ideal, but who was he to judge? He might have made the same choice if he were in his shoes. "Thank you for the food, Mag. I'll buy you a drink when I kill that beast," Mabai said, waving at Mag, and staggered out towards his forge. Mag watched him get inside. A cold wind came, causing Mag to shiver. "It's getting cold. Winter is coming," he muttered. News of Alex killing all the elf hunters and saving a mercenary group spread rapidly among mercenaries, but that was not the only good news. The elves had been saved. Some of them had put themselves out of their misery before Alex got to them, but the rest of them were alive and somewhat well. Alex had done this great deed, not the Grey Temple. He found their hideout and killed all of them single-handed. The name Alex was the one they talked about the most in Chaos City tonight. They recalled his acts of heroism in the past and praised his bravery and other eminent virtues. They suddenly realized that the past 3 years without Alex had been dull and unexciting. Now he was back, and in less than a month, he had become the main topic of conversation. He had killed 6 level 10s and the spatial demon patriarch in Rodu. Then he appeared in the Wind Forest, wounded an elder of the elves, and saved Irina. He came to Chaos City and declared all wandering elves were under his protection. Today, he descended from the sky and slew all the elf hunters. He was a human, to be sure, but he was revered as a hero by many species. Mag couldn't care less what other people thought of him. Nothing was more important to him than his daughter. He wiped the foam off Amy's nose and helped her hold Ugly Duckling, who was struggling to get out of the bathtub. "Stop it, Ugly Duckling. If you don't take a bath, you can forget about sleeping in my bed. I can't stand the smell coming off you," Amy threatened as the cat clawed at the bathtub wildly. Ugly Duckling stopped struggling immediately. It gazed at Amy, trying to gauge whether she was angry or not. After it was convinced she meant what she had just said, it withdrew its paws and gave an obedient meow. Amy nodded. "Good duck." She squeezed some animal shampoo onto its hair and massaged it in with her fingertips. "Why don't you learn to swim, Ugly Duckling? Then you'll be able to save me if we fall into water together." Ugly Duckling's eyes went round, suddenly frightened. "If I fall into water? I just realized I'll never fall into water. I can fly. But you may, and when you do, I won't be able to pull you out because you're too fat." "So, meow, meow." Ugly Duckling edged backward slowly, afraid. "Get over here. I said get over here. Trust me, you don't want me to come to you. Good duck. Now swim." Mag watched as the cat started swimming reluctantly. Since it was its first time swimming, it swallowed a lot of water. It quickly got the hang of it, though, and its dog paddle was getting better fast. After he dried its hair and tucked Amy in, Mag went up to the balcony. It was cold and dark outside. Mag pulled his clothes more tightly around himself, looking up at the starry sky thoughtfully. It had been almost 4 months since he got transported to this world. He had hated it here at first, but as time went by, he had come to love this strange continent. It had been an amazing journey for him. If not for Amy, he might not have been able to hold on so long. He might have given up when the system locked him up to train in the test field for the first time. After all, he had always been a lazy person. This world was far from being peaceful, but maybe he could make it a tad less *tty. Mag stood there, thinking about the problems at hand and possible solutions. In 3 months, the peace treaty signed by all the species 100 years ago would expire. Whether they chose to renew the treaty would determine whether this relative peace could continue. After the birthday banquet for the king of the Roth Empire, each species had been expected to make an announcement appealing for peace, but they didn't, so this renewal would definitely not go smoothly. After 100 years of recuperation, each species would have their own plans. Obviously, it wouldn't be easy for them to reach an agreement. It was highly unlikely that there would be a full-on war, though. After all, as powerful as dragons were, they had suffered heavy losses in the last war. However, local wars would be inevitable. They would probably try to redivide their territories according to strength. Many innocent people would be caught up in wars and die. Considering his influence, Mag could do little, even Alex couldn't prevent what was going to happen. Mag could use Alex's influence to put pressure on some species, but that was the best he could do. The restaurant was now on the right track. After today's upgrading and expansion, the revenue should be able to rise a lot. He had just spent a huge amount of money on one strength point. He didn't know when he could earn enough money to buy another 0.5 strength point, so it was unlikely that his strength would skyrocket anytime soon. He had sold his patent on the steam engine to the Buffett banks and gotten 10% shares in trains and 20% shares in steam engines. The possibility of mass production of steam engines and him receiving huge profits was small. To make profits in the freight business, one had to invest an insane amount of money in building railways first. Mag was more optimistic about the application of steam engines in other industries. Steam engines could be used in many different businesses, such as textile mills, machine shops, and smelting plants. Their selling point was efficiency. Once put into mass production, they would bring him and Buffett banks huge profits. Mag knew that steam engines would have probably helped him become the wealthiest man on the continent if he hadn't sold the patent. Yet he was too lazy to turn steam engines into money, so he left it to Buffett banks. They were professionals who were better at making money than he was. They would make him rich enough. Mag didn't want to kill dragons in the sky or catch demons in the sea like Alex. He didn't want to be a business tycoon, either. He had become fond of cooking. He liked to stay by Amy's side, make delicious food for interesting guests, and listen to their sincere praise. He had no ambition in his previous life or this life. One thing he really wanted to do now was to bring Irina from the Wind Forest to Mamie restaurant. He could feel that she was special. He didn't know how to express that feeling. She was not his lover, but he couldn't wait to see her again. Am I in love with her? Mag whispered, looking in the direction of the Wind Forest. He was silent for a while, and then said, "Wait for me, I will get you back. Next time, no one can stop me." Mag went downstairs. The second floor was twice as big as before. It had changed completely after the renovation. Mag's room was a third larger than before. The floor was covered with soft carpet. The big soft double bed looked very attractive. The Aiden square could be seen through the one-way window extending to the floor. In the crib beside the big bed, Amy was sleeping with Ugly Duckling in her arms. Amy's amusement park was also twice its original size, and thus no longer crowded with entertainment equipment. She now could have a better time in her amusement park. Next to the master bedroom, there was a purple and blue room with stars on the ceiling. It was Amy's future room, because she naturally needed her own room when she grew up. The house was now big enough for several more rooms. There was a small study in the corner of the second floor. In the study stood a desk, 2 chairs, and a shelf full of books. The window of the study faced the Bastille prison as Mag had required. Mag believed the prison could clear his mind. He smiled after checking out all the rooms. That's what a home should be like. But something seemed to be missing. He knew what was missing, but he didn't want to say it. The night was getting deeper. There were no people in the streets. In a quiet hut in the north of the city, Elizabeth was sitting on her ice bed, meditating. Suddenly she opened her eyes and looked out of the window warily. A white snowflake appeared at her side, and then it broke instantly. Almost at the same time, the hut collapsed, making a loud noise. The whole street was shaking. The residents nearby screamed in fear and the children cried loudly. Two demons appeared on a big tree not far away from the hut, one tall and one short. They were staring at the hut. The taller demon was holding a dark crystal ball in his hand. "Is she dead?" the shorter demon asked in a hoarse and excited voice. The taller demon frowned at the crystal ball in his hand, and angrily said, "No. She's gone. There she is." The figure behind a broken wall immediately turned and ran into an alley. The shorter demon jumped down the tree and rushed towards the alley like an arrow. "The people of the Grey Temple will be here in 3 minutes, so we'll retreat if we can't kill her in 3 minutes, said the taller demon. With that, he disappeared in an instant, and then reappeared in the alley. He looked at a snowflake on the ground with an evil smile on his face. The dark crystal ball in his hand glowed red. The red light then turned into a red knife, cutting open space. The red knife found the target in the space rift. The figure in the rift stumbled, and a few drops of blood fell to the ground. Then the rift closed. "What?" The taller demon was surprised. His brow furrowed, and the red knife opened the space again. A few groans came from the rift. "How dare you make trouble in Chaos City?" An old man's voice cracked through the night as loud as a thunderclap. A flying mount came rapidly in this direction. "Retreat," called the taller demon. He appeared in the alley on a teleportation formation that had already been set up. The shorter demon didn't seem to want to go, but he looked at the flying mount and rushed to the teleportation formation too. The formation was activated, and the two demons disappeared in a flash. A dozen or so ice spears came down from the sky, but it was too late. They all hit the teleportation formation. "They're growing bolder by the day," the old magician said angrily as he sat on the back of a big white bird. He took a look at the collapsed hut and was relieved to find no one in it. Unfortunately, the teleportation formation had destroyed itself. The old magician straightened his robe, stood up, and said in a loud voice, "Don't worry. I'm with the Grey Temple." Yabimiya was sleeping soundly when she heard a thud outside. She immediately opened her eyes. Did something hit the roof? She opened her sleepy eyes. She was sure that it hadn't been an hallucination. She hesitated for a moment, turned on the light, put on her clothes, and walked out of the door. She saw Sally as soon as she went out. "Mia, did you hear it, too?" Yabimiya nodded. "Yes. Something seems to have fallen on the roof. Shall we go and have a look?" "Yes, I don't think it's a bird." Sally walked warily to the door. Yabimiya quickly followed her. Sally slowly opened the door, her magic wand in hand. Yabimiya found herself holding a pan. She followed Sally silently. As soon as the door opened, Sally saw a figure lying outside. She cast an illuminating spell. "Why is she here?" she asked, surprised. "Miss Elizabeth," cried Yabimiya in surprise. When she saw the blood on her body, the pan in her hand crashed to the ground. She rushed out from behind Sally and knelt down in front of Elizabeth. However, she couldn't use healing magic, so she looked up at Sally, and said, "Aisha, please help her." Her. Sally hesitated as she looked at Elizabeth, who was breathing faintly. She turned to Yabimiya. "Mia, are you sure she's a good person?" Yabimiya looked up at Sally and nodded firmly. "Yes, I can assure you Miss Elizabeth is not a bad person." She hurriedly applied pressure on her bleeding wounds with her hands. "Aisha, please help her. She has lost a lot of blood," she said anxiously. Sally hesitated for a moment, and then began to cast healing magic. Green light fell on Elizabeth, and the wounds healed up quickly. Color returned to her face. 10 minutes later, Sally put away the magic wand and the green light disappeared. Elizabeth's wounds had turned into shallow scars. Although her face was still a little pale, her breathing was smooth and no longer as weak as before. Thank goodness! Aisha, you're amazing, said Yabimiya in surprise. She crouched down and carefully picked Elizabeth up, turned around, and began to walk towards the door. Mia, are you going to take her inside? Sally asked, puzzled. Mia nodded. She's unconscious, and it's cold outside. If we leave her here, she will catch a cold. Sally didn't move. She looked at Elizabeth, and said, she is a level 7 frost dragon. The people who wounded her must be at least at level 8. We'll be in danger if they come here. But we can't leave her here, she's just a girl. Yabimiya paused for a moment, and then said, we should help her, at least until she wakes up. Sally was silent for a moment, and then she moved aside and let her pass. Thank you, Aisha, Yabimiya said gratefully. She walked in with Elizabeth in her arms and went straight to her room. Sally sighed. Such a kind girl. With a wave of her hand, a stream of water appeared, washing all the blood from the door and the roof. She stood on the roof and looked around for a while before returning to the house. As she walked past Yabimiya's room, Sally saw that she was carefully wiping Elizabeth's body with a towel soaked with warm water. She hesitated for a moment and said nothing. Although the frost dragon was suspicious, nothing had happened the few times she had been alone with Mia. Besides, Babla was also a 7th-tier magician, just like her. Even if Elizabeth harbored evil intentions, Sally didn't think she would hurt Mia, not when she and Babla were in the same house. Her injuries seemed to have been caused by demons. Sally could sense evil in the wounds. She didn't know what had happened to her. Why do they dare to attack a dragon in Chaos City? Don't they worry about the rage of the dragons? After the third basin of hot water, Elizabeth's blood was finally wiped clean. Mia dressed Elizabeth in her clothes, though they didn't fit very well. What happened to Miss Elizabeth? Who hurt her? Yabimiya sat by the bed, looking anxiously at Elizabeth. After a while, she drifted into sleep. The next morning Elizabeth opened her sleepy eyes, suddenly remembering the demons and the attack. Her eyes flicked open and she started to jump up. Then she saw pink instead of demons. The bed under her was soft, and the quilts were as light and warm as feathers. She felt so comfortable that she didn't want to get up. What is this place? She remembered being attacked by a level 9 spatial demon and a level 8 demon. She lost consciousness after teleporting herself. She thought she was going to die in their hands, but when she opened her eyes, she found herself under a warm quilt. Elizabeth looked around warily, and then her eyes fell on Yabimiya, who was sitting there sleeping, with her head down on the bed. Elizabeth's eyes widened in surprise. Yabimiya! Did she save me? Elizabeth softened as she watched Yabimiya's quivering lashes and her lovely face. It was the first time she had looked so closely at her face. She slept like a child. Elizabeth suddenly remembered her wounds. She lifted the quilt and looked down, giving a wry smile. The pink pajamas she was wearing were too short, but they were neither too tight nor too loose, and the fabric was soft and comfortable. All the wounds on her body had healed, leaving only a few faint scars. For dragons, scars were medals, so she didn't care. But why am I here? Did I leave a teleportation formation here? Chaos City was big, but the sleeping girl might be the only one she could trust. Fox really wants me out of the picture. I was lucky last night, but I don't think I'll be able to survive their next assassination. Should I give you the golden dragon pearl now? Elizabeth looked at Yabimiya, thoughtful. That was when Yabimiya woke up. She opened her eyes to see Elizabeth looking at her. Miss Elizabeth, you are awake, she said happily. Do you feel any better? You lost a lot of blood yesterday. I'm very worried about you. I'm so glad you woke up. I'm much better now, said Elizabeth, after remembering herself. She felt a warm feeling in her heart as Yabimiya looked at her with concern. No one in this world had looked at her like this in a long time since her mother died. Thank you for last night, she said. That's the least I could do. You must be thirsty. I'll pour you a glass of water. Yabimiya left, and soon came back in with a glass of warm water. She smiled and handed it to Elizabeth. Can you walk? Why don't you go to Mamie restaurant with me in the morning? You need some tofu pudding. It'll rid you of the scars. Oh my god! It's just been one day, and Mamie restaurant has grown twice as big. It seems all of the renovation happened in just one day. Talk about efficiency. A renovation of this scale usually takes half a month or so, but Mag did it in one day. He must have hired some very powerful magic casters to do the job. I wonder how much money he had spent. But all that doesn't matter. I'm more concerned if they'll be able to serve more people each meal now that they have gotten bigger. My boss has taken to having a short meeting every day after work, so by the time I get here for dinner, I'm almost always too late. Early in the morning, the guests in line outside the restaurant quickly saw the difference. Although the lowered curtains blocked the view, it was obvious Mamie restaurant had gotten much bigger. Today's new dish, Peking duck 100 every night. Limit 1 per customer. No to-go allowed. One customer found a notice hanging on the door. What is a Peking duck? Never heard of it. A kind of roast duck. Roast ducks in Dukas restaurant are pretty good, they're crispy, but too sweet to eat much. They add too much sugar. I wonder what this Peking duck will taste like. Only one way to find out. Mag has never disappointed us once, so I definitely will come early tonight. I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to try the new dish. But I don't think I can finish a whole duck by myself, I need to find someone to come with me. The crowd gathered around the notice and chatted. Roast duck? Did you catch some ducks again, father? Amy asked nervously when Mag told her about the Peking duck. Mag shook his head with a smile. No, someone else did. And I'll turn them into roast ducks. Amy might want to set the ducks free again, considering that she had already done it once with the 2 red-top tricolor ducks. However, this time the ducks had been killed and dressed by the system, so she couldn't set them free even if he let her. Amy took a look at Ugly Duckling. When she found it was sleeping on the counter, she crept over to Mag. Then let's eat them when Ugly Duckling is not around, she whispered. They might be its brothers and sisters. If it sees us eating them, it will get sad or even scared and run away. It was all Mag could do not to laugh. He nodded. Good idea. The cost of making a roast duck was 500 copper coins, so Mag priced a Peking duck at 2,000. If he could sell 100 ducks every day, he could make profits of 150,000 copper coins. It was more profitable than Yangzhou fried rice. Mag didn't worry about customers not liking the dish, because even he couldn't say no to it, and he was the pickiest eater he knew. Can we have roast duck for breakfast? Amy asked with an expectant face. I'm afraid it's too greasy for breakfast. It's bad for you. We can have it for lunch maybe. It was really difficult for Amy to hold her horses whenever he mastered a new dish. Amy nodded. She looked a little disappointed, but not unhappy. That was when a knock came on the door. Boss, it's me, Ferris. Mag opened the door to find Ferris standing outside in her brand new chef's uniform. She was panting, her face red. I'm sorry, boss, she said, embarrassed. The bed is too soft. Am I late? Mag nodded after looking at his watch. You're 15 minutes late, but since this is your first time being late, I'll let you off with a warning. Please don't be late again. Thank you, boss, I won't. She had meant to come here early, but she had overslept. She ran here, but still she failed to make it in time. "Come on in. If we hurry, we can make up for lost time," Mag said with a smile. As a boss, he couldn't pamper his employees. It was important to come to work on time. The restaurant was very busy now, so one employee being late might affect the operation of the whole restaurant. Ferris hurried in and was surprised to find that the restaurant had doubled in size. The wooden shelves, the green plants, and the warm lights. Everything worked together to make her feel so warm and comfortable. "Good morning, big sister Ferris," Amy said as she rubbed Ugly Duckling's head. "Morning, Amy," she said, following Mag to the kitchen. She was completely stunned when she looked inside. The kitchen was where magic happened. The old one had been made for Mag to cook in it alone, but the new one was twice its original size, and everything had been arranged so neatly that there was enough room for 3 or 4 people working together. Ferris was dazzled, not by the lights, but by the neatness of the kitchen. "This is so impressive," Ferris thought, and suddenly found that her kitchen that she had been very proud of was nothing compared to this one. "This is the ingredients we'll be needing today. I'll help you process them, but as you can see, our restaurant has become much larger, so I'll have my hands full with all the cooking. When I start cooking, I need you to process all the ingredients for me. Can you do it?" "Yes, boss," she answered quickly. Then she washed her hands and started working. "I will pass the probation period and work in this kitchen." Mornings in the Wind Forest were foggy. In a luxurious palace, a middle-aged elf looked at Borg sadly, and said, "Lord Borg, when Irina and some other guys killed all the mercenaries who escorted the slaves, we lost more than 100 slaves. And yesterday, Alex destroyed a mercenary group led by a level 8 demon in Chaos City. I'm afraid it will be very difficult for us to get more slaves." Borg was sitting in an opulent chair with a dark face. He crushed the cup in his hand. "Alex is such a pain in the *SS. Although he has died once, he is just as obnoxious as he used to be." He paused for a moment, and then continued, "Raise the bounty and warn those guys not to even think about selling slaves elsewhere. Otherwise, they will pay a heavy price. Elves can only be sold to the Wind Forest. If they forget, have people remind them." "Yes, Lord Borg," the man replied before bowing and taking his leave. "How long can the Tree of Life last? That power is fascinating. Soon I'll subject the whole Wind Forest to my rule, including the Queen." Borg raised his hand and a green flame appeared and danced in his palm. Greenish-black lines appeared on his arm, extending to his wrist. "Alex, I'll kill you myself and have my revenge." Borg's eyes turned blood red, his shadow dancing in the light like a devil. The cave in which the Tree of Life grew still emitted green light. The spring of life had dried up completely, and the trees around had become less vigorous and some were dying. The once holy land of the elves had now become a forbidden area. Elves were told not to come near, or they would be subjected to severe punishment. 2 teams of elves were patrolling here. After the Elven Queen went into seclusion, several major events had happened in the Wind Forest. Princess Irina had been deprived of the title of princess, but what she had said was like a seed, which had rooted in the hearts of young elves and grown. Many young elf boys and girls from noble houses were grounded these days. Although the news came out that they made small mistakes, everyone knew why they were punished. Changes were happening quietly, unsettling the older generation of elves, and it was none other than the successors they were painstakingly trying to cultivate that were causing these changes. The cave was as quiet as ever, or rather, quieter than before because Ferris, who had always fussed over every little thing, was no longer here. Irina was still sitting under the Tree of Life in her long white dress, meditating with her eyes closed. A green light rose from her body and connected her to the Tree of Life. There were many blackish-green cracks in the trunk of the Tree of Life. They were halfway up from the roots, and there was evil coming out of those cracks. The leaves were drooping and not as green as before. However, the vitality of the Tree of Life and Irina's magic were fighting against the evil and trying to keep it at bay. As expected, Borg has turned his back on the god of life and joined the undead. He even dares to hurt the Tree of Life. After a long while, Irina opened her eyes. The light coming from her faded away. She needed some rest to recover her energy. Bean Sprout, I want a cup of, Irina started, and then suddenly remembered that Ferris was no longer here. She looked at the empty cave and shook her head with a smile. The girl who had been found and taken in by her when she was very young, and who had never left the Wind Forest before, was in Chaos City now. She trusted Mag to look after her. Irina looked up at the Tree of Life and sighed. Hang in there, old friend. If you fall, elves are finished. The god of life will not protect the elves tainted by the undead. You are our last hope. The half-withered branches swayed slightly, as if in response to Irina's words. That brought a smile to Irina's lips. She stood up and walked around in the cave. Then she sat back down and closed her eyes again. I'll rest an hour, and then we continue fighting the evil. I think I'm getting the hang of it. It seems its fear of holy light is far greater than the power of life. That tree has stopped producing water of life. It's a big problem. I can't grow rice. Now I need a lot of rice of life every day, and the stock can last 3 months at most. It takes 2 months for rice to grow and ripen, so I need to get that tree to start producing water again in 1 month. Those things are really annoying. They couldn't have come at a worse time. I would have wiped them all out with gamma rays, but God has told me not to meddle in such matters. I can't grow rice with them here. I'm losing money. The system was talking to itself in Mag's head. I can't kill them, but maybe I'm allowed to fertilize that tree. As the god of cookery cultivation system, my mission is to assist Mag to become the god of cookery. If I can't guarantee the adequate supply of rice of life, Yangzhou fried rice will have to be removed from the menu. I cannot let that happen. Saving the tree doesn't go against my 3 rules. I have never dealt with undead creatures before. Let me study the anatomy of them first. Everything can be explained by science. If it cannot be explained, it must be because science is not developed enough. Once again, Ferris showed her great knife skills. All the ingredients quickly became pieces of required sizes under the Chinese chef's knife. Even Mag couldn't find fault with her handiwork. Mag was busy too. In addition to the ingredients that needed to be cut, there were many other things that needed to be done by him, such as preparing the sauces for beef kebabs and marinating beef. However, Mag's workload had been reduced by at least half, which made him very happy. Soon Sally and Yabimiya arrived. Mia, did you sleep well last night? Mag asked with concern when he saw the dark circles around her eyes. Yabimiya started reluctantly. What happened? Mag stopped what he was doing and looked into her eyes. He could tell something had happened last night. Sally looked at Mia and said nothing. Yabimiya paused a moment as they gazed at her with concern. Then she shook her head with a smile. Nothing. I guess I didn't sleep well last night. I had a bad dream. Mag didn't want to press her further. Well, we're here if something is bothering you. You don't need to go to the ice cream shop today. Go back and get some rest when breakfast hours are over. Thanks, boss. Mia felt a warm feeling in her heart. I don't know who her enemies are, maybe it's best if I don't get boss involved. She isn't able to get out of bed yet, so I should bring her something to eat when I get back. Sally sighed silently. She's too trusting. Hopefully that Frost Dragon is not a bad person as she believes. Oh, boss, I saw the notice outside, said Mia as she stood at the kitchen door. So there's a new dish coming out. Peking duck, right? But where are the ducks? They all turned to look at Mag, as curious as the customers waiting outside. Each and every dish in this restaurant had blown their minds, so of course they were intrigued. Ducks are still on the way. The new dish will be launched officially tonight. It's not fit for breakfast, but I'll cook one for lunch and we'll try it. Yes, roast ducks were good, but they were not good for breakfast. Great! Mia exclaimed happily. One of the best things about working here is getting to try new dishes first. Boss, you can call me whenever you want to invent new dishes. I can help you taste them. They smiled. Maybe everyone wanted to help Mag invent new dishes by eating them. Trust me, you don't want to try my failed dishes, replied Mag. Besides, you'd have to have a really big stomach cause I fail a lot. Everyone burst into laughter. Even Sally covered her mouth and grinned. Firis looked at them and suddenly considered herself very lucky. Neither Irina nor Mag had mistreated her because of who she was or where she had come from. The atmosphere here was much more relaxed and peaceful than that in the Wind Forest. Of course, she was confused to find Sally here. Sally was the most likely to become the new elven princess now that Irina had been deposed, but she was here, working as a waitress when everyone thought she was training in her house. Sally had disguised herself and tried to find out what had happened in the Wind Forest yesterday, but what she had found out really shocked her. Irina had been deposed, and the Elven Queen had gone into seclusion. Right now, there were two opposing forces in the Wind Forest, one was led by Borg, the other by Helena. Although the possibility of the Elven realm sliding into a civil war was low, they would probably try to find another Elven princess. As such, Sally might be forced to leave Chaos City and return home. She had wanted to talk to Firis yesterday, but the latter had locked herself in her room all day. Somehow their eyes found each other, and they quickly looked away. Later, during their breakfast, Yabimiya asked Mag if she could take a sweet tofu pudding home and eat later. Sweet tofu pudding? Mag asked, surprised. She has always only eaten savory tofu pudding, and why does she have to take it home? Yes. I want to try it. But don't get me wrong, I'm still a savory tofu pudding girl. I just want to try it so that, she paused, trying to come up with a convincing reason. So that I can find more reasons not to eat it. Yeah. That's the reason. Mag nodded with a smile. I see. Of course you can take it home. Clearly it was a lie, but Mag didn't want to expose it. Something did happen last night. She must have her reasons not to tell me. Everyone had a secret, including him. Mia's face lit up. Thanks, boss. Normally we can cater for about 300 people in one morning, Mag said after breakfast, but since we're bigger now, I plan to serve 400 customers during breakfast hours, so I'm afraid we'll have to work harder than before. I'm sure we can do it. Mia nodded confidently. We got this. Sally and Babla were full of fighting spirit. They decided to give their all now that their workload had increased. Do you want me to help with serving customers, boss? Firis asked. No need for that, Mag replied. You just stay in the kitchen. You'll be as busy as a beaver after you've mastered how to grill beef kebabs. The people in the back part of the waiting lines would have left, but Mag told them they could serve up to 400 customers this morning. Welcome, Mag said to the crowd, smiling. Finally they got to see the new Mamie restaurant. Whoa, it's much bigger than before. I like the wooden shelves. It's so classy. Mag is indeed a genius. That plant can grow in water alone? I didn't know. But these crystal glass containers look very expensive, and they are using them as plant pots. Talk about being extravagant. A giant falcon landed quietly on a mountain 5 kilometers away from Chaos City. Two figures got off the bird and looked in the direction of the city. Lord Elliot, if other great houses found out about you coming here, they might have questions, a middle-aged elf said, worried. What's important now is getting Sally back, Elliot said gravely. I'm afraid no one but me can do that. We need to make her the new elven princess if we want to survive the turbulent situation. The middle-aged elf looked at Elliot like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. Wait for me here. I'll bring her back by sunset tomorrow. Stay out of trouble. With that, Elliot headed fast towards Chaos City. Mamie Restaurant was barely able to handle the increased workload. The limbs of the waitresses grew heavier by the second even with the help of magic. You could use several more waitresses, Mag, Harrison said to Mag cooking in the kitchen when he paid his check. Look at them, this is no way to treat girls. Yeah, and I could use several more cooks too, Mag said, and flicked the wok with a quick sleight of hand, making the colorful fried rice fly gracefully in the air. If he hadn't leveled up by 2 levels the other day, he wouldn't have been able to handle the heavy workload, either. Harrison stuck his head into the kitchen and took a look. No way. You're cooking for 400 people by yourself. I'm speechless. How can you do this to yourself? Mag rubbed his sore wrists when the breakfast hours were over, and looked at the girls who had collapsed on the chairs to rest. My conscience will be troubled if I don't give them a raise. When Mag was thinking about how much their salaries should be raised, a towel which had been soaked in hot water appeared before him. Here, said Ferris. Mag took the towel in his hand, surprised. Thanks. You're welcome. With that, Ferris walked out of the kitchen as hurriedly as if she were fleeing from a crime scene, and handed out the towels to the other girls. Such a kind-hearted girl. Mag put the towel on his face. The heat drove his fatigue away. He felt so comfortable that he wanted to close his eyes and sleep. They all looked at Ferris with gratitude in their eyes. I'm going back to the dormitory. I'll catch you guys later, Yabimiya said after they carried all the dishes into the kitchen. She then picked up her sweet tofu pudding and started to leave. Hold on a sec, Mia, said Mag. I cooked one more plate of fried rice by accident, why don't you take it with you? He handed a box to her. Mia was so touched that she bowed to Mag. Thanks, boss. Go on. Go back and get some sleep, Mag said, and touched her head. Set an alarm. Don't be late for work. Mia nodded. Got it. She then left quickly. Sally and Babla still looked tired. Get some rest, Mag said to them. Harrison was right. This is no way to treat girls. Maybe I need to hire several more capable waitresses. You won't be able to find anyone as good as us, Babla said coolly. You're truly very competent, all of you. There was no way he could use beef kebabs to trick another 7th-tier spatial magic caster into working for him. But still, he had to try. To make matters worse, the Brewsters might come any day and take Sally away. Given what was happening in the Wind Forest, he couldn't force her to stay. They are probably on their way here if they're not stupid, and it doesn't take a detective to know she is working here. Sally's leaving would put the restaurant in a difficult situation. He needed to find a solution, and quickly. 7th-tier water-type magic casters were not that hard to find in Chaos City, but they were either working for the Grey Temple or in mercenary groups. It would be a tad difficult to poach them. Another solution was to find a low-level water-type magic caster good enough to clean the restaurant, a cashier good at math, and 2 reasonably quick and efficient waitresses to serve customers. Is Sally doing 4 people's jobs? I guess I'm really an exploiter. He didn't like the idea of a lot of employees working in the restaurant, but it seemed there was no other option. Guess I have to talk to that Crease again. Hopefully he'll find several capable ones for me, Mag thought to himself. Oh, Ferris, go to the market and buy some beef, and then use it to hone your grilling skills. Mag walked to the counter, took out several gold coins, and gave them to Ferris. Ferris started reluctantly, but then she nodded and left. Sally and Babla left as well after they had finished cleaning up the restaurant. They hadn't gotten accustomed to the considerable amount of work, they needed some rest. Mag changed into his casual clothes and planned to go to the Find All job finding service, but when he opened the door, he found Luna standing outside about to knock. Hi, Teacher Luna, what brings you here? Mag asked, surprised. Luna pulled back her hand. Hi, Mag. I wanted to invite you to attend the parent-teacher meeting. Parent-teacher meeting. Mag had been so busy dealing with elf hunters that he had forgotten all about this. He remembered now. But Amy's teachers were Krasa and Urian. Did Krasa send her here? Luna seemed to have read his mind. Yes. The school holds a parent-teacher meeting every semester. I know Amy is studying under Krasa and Urian, but the school has assigned her to me, so, I see. Thank you for coming all this way to tell me this. I'll be there. When is the meeting going to be held? 1:30 p.m. tomorrow. Luna paused a moment. But the school wants both parents to attend. Mag smiled. Amy has told me about this. Don't worry, I'll figure something out. Luna looked relieved. Okay, I'll see you then. Mag nodded with a smile. Hopefully Aisha won't say no, Mag muttered as he watched Luna leave. If she don't want to pose as my fake wife, maybe I can ask Firas. She's not ideal, but she's much better than Blower. Mag was riding to a job center when he suddenly remembered the food competition which would start in a couple days. I have to perfect the eggplant with garlic sauce fast, or I'll fail the system's mission. System, why don't you give me a recipe for the eggplant with garlic sauce? Mag asked. 5 words went across his head. Inventing fertilizer. Do not disturb. Mag responded, what the hell? Mag arrived at the job center. Although there were creatures from all kinds of species looking for jobs, he found no one to his liking. He discovered a fact about himself, though, and that was that he liked his waitresses to be beautiful. Even though he was not a womanizer. As competent as some older women were, he couldn't bring himself to hire them. He then went to the Find All job finding service to see if the balding Kreese could help him out. Kreese felt Mag had gotten the better end of their last deal, but he was a smooth businessman, and he didn't show the least displeasure. Mag's requirements were difficult to meet, so he demanded twice the normal fee. Mag nodded. No problem. I'd put up a "We are hiring" poster on the wall if I were you, since your restaurant is so popular, Kreese spoke without thinking. Mag's face lit up. Yeah. That could work. I keep hearing many people talking about how they want to work for me for free as long as I give them food, and some of them seem pretty capable. Thanks, man. With that, Mag turned around and left. Kreese looked like he was going to slap himself on the face. Why did I have to tell him that? Mag rode to the market. There were eggplants in this world too, but compared with their counterparts on Earth, they were much larger, about the size of a wax gourd. They were said to be found in forest trolls' territory, and they tasted the same as the ones on Earth. Mag picked one up and reckoned it weighed over 5 kilograms. A large eggplant like this is enough to feed several people. The vendor was a middle-aged man. When he saw Mag interested in his eggplants, his sleepy eyes flicked open. Freshly picked eggplants. Look how big they are. And cheap at twice the price. 10 copper coins each. I can give you a discount if you buy 5. Less than 2 copper coins for a kilo. It is cheap, Mag thought. People here didn't know many ways to cook eggplants, and everyone hated this soft, weird-tasting vegetable save for forest trolls. That was why the vendor had almost fallen asleep. I'll have 3. I'll come back if they're good. Mag picked 3 and handed 3 silver coins to him. If you buy 5, I'll give you 1 for free, the vendor said as he tied the eggplants up with a length of straw rope. Even forest trolls seemed to be getting fed up with eggplants, so he needed to find a way to sell them before they rotted. Mag shook his head. No, thanks. 3 is enough for me today. I'll come back tomorrow. Now he needed to buy seasonings and spices for chili broad bean paste, which was a deciding factor in making the eggplant with garlic sauce. Mag saw Firas carefully choosing beef when he was buying spices. He watched for a while and left without disturbing her. Choosing ingredients was a basic skill a cook needed to master. Mag went upstairs after he got back, and found the notebook in which he had written the recipes he had come up with for the eggplant with garlic sauce. He would test them out one by one. Mag was working on chili broad bean paste, while Firas was grilling kebabs. Without customers, the restaurant was very quiet. Now and then they sighed, but they quickly jumped into another trial again. Behind every delicious dish is a passionate chef and his relentless pursuit of perfection. I need to try harder, Firas thought as she stole a glance at Mag. When it was lunchtime, Mag went to roast a duck. He put thin pancakes, spring onions, cucumber sticks, and sweet bean sauce on the table. Everyone else was sitting at the table looking to the kitchen and waiting with great expectation. It was Mamie Restaurant's first Peking duck, and they would be the first ones to try it. Mag slowly wheeled out of the kitchen a dining cart, on which lay several beautiful plates, a round wood cutting board, a heavy-looking Chinese chef's knife, and a platter covered by a silver cloche. Everyone was staring at the covered platter, wondering what the roast duck looked like. Peking duck, Mag said with a smile, and removed the cloche. On the platter sat a fat roast duck, its skin shiny brown. Their eyes brightened as it was so beautiful. It was still steaming, and the mouth-watering smell floated into the air. Their mouths started watering despite themselves. Yabimiya took a deep sniff. Smells so good. The aroma is different from that of beef kebabs, but it's just as inviting. Father, there's only one duck, but there are 6 of us. Are we going to split it? Amy said, perplexed. They turned to look at Mag, waiting for his answer. Mag smiled. Yes, we are. Slicing a duck is an important process. How you do it will affect the taste of the duck. He put on disposable gloves, put the roast duck on the cutting board, picked up the knife, and sliced it up nice and thin. Each piece of duck was as thin as a leaf. All pieces were of the same size, all with a little duck skin. The knife was heavy, but Mag used it like it was a part of his body. He sliced the duck up and placed the pieces on the beautiful plates in no time. Amy stared at the meat like she was ready to pounce on it. Firas gaped in awe. He can cut the meat into such thin pieces without the aid of magic. Such impressive knife skills. She didn't believe she could have done better than Mag, even with the help of her wind magic. Sally and Yabimiya couldn't hide their surprise, either. The slicing process seemed to have given soul to this dish. As they smelled the strong aroma in the air, they felt like they could almost taste it, even though they were not eating it. Their anticipation was growing by the second. 108 pieces, Mag said, putting down the knife. There was barely any meat left on the bones. He smiled as he looked at the 5 plates full of meat. 108 pieces. The perfect number. Only duck slicing masters were able to slice a duck into 108 thin pieces of the same size and thickness. That was a skill that had taken Mag the most time to master. Slicing a duck was a skill that really needed a lot of practice to master. Father, can we eat now? Amy asked. It was all she could do not to make a grab for the meat. Sure, Mag said, looking lovingly at his daughter. But before we dig in, let me tell you how to eat it first. You can eat it by itself, or you can dip it in the sweet bean sauce. The best way is to dip it in the sweet bean sauce and roll some cucumber sticks, some spring onions, and the meat in a pancake. Now they knew what the things before them were for. That was such an elaborate way to eat the Peking duck. Go ahead, eat up. Mag said to the girls who could hardly wait any longer. Amy was the first to pick up a piece with her chopsticks. She brought it into her mouth directly. Her face broke into a blissful smile instantly. It was the taste of happiness. So that's what a roast duck tastes like. A roast swan must taste more or less the same. Yummy, exclaimed Amy. Let me try it, Yabimiya said, picking up a piece and dipping it in the sweet bean sauce. She then put it in her mouth and bit into it. The skin was crispy while the meat was soft. It was flavorful enough by itself, but the sauce gave extra flavor to it. Yabimiya closed her eyes and saw a duck in an oven. Its skin was slowly turning brown. Grease seeped out of the duck and ran down the skin and into the fire. This was divine. Yabimiya opened her eyes, stunned. Is this really a roast duck? There is not even the slightest hint of the unpleasant taste inherent in duck meat. I never thought the meat could be so tender under such crispy skin. Let me try it with a pancake. Sally picked up a pancake, which was so thin that it was virtually translucent. She carefully placed it on her plate. It was still warm to the touch. It's so thin, Sally thought. She dipped a piece of duck in the sweet bean sauce, put it on the pancake along with 2 spring onion sticks and 2 cucumber sticks, and then carefully wrapped the pancake around the filling for fear of breaking it. She looked surprised when she picked the roll up and there was no sign that it would break. That duck roll looks perfect, Mag said, smiling. It tastes better if you put it all in your mouth at one go. Sally hesitated a moment as she looked at the roll. It was unladylike for her to eat in one go, but she did as Mag said nonetheless. The pancake was soft and tasty. After she bit into the filling, various tastes erupted on her taste buds, caressing them and making them quiver with excitement. The more she chewed, the better she felt. The sweet bean sauce went great with the meat. The cucumber was refreshing and a welcome crunch to the meat. The mouth-watering taste lingered in her mouth after she swallowed. Sally savored the taste for a moment, and then raised her head to look at Mag. I didn't think cucumbers and spring onions would go well with duck meat, but it seems I was very wrong. It's scrumptious. It's so good, Amy said as she chewed on the meat. Then her eyes found the cat sitting on the counter craning its neck curiously to see what they were eating. She smiled an evil smile. Grow up quickly, ugly duckling. Meow. Ugly duckling felt a sudden chill going through its body. It crept backwards in fear, lost its footing, and tumbled down the counter. The girls giggled. The delicious roast duck brought them joy and laughter. Mag also picked up a piece and ate it. He loved everything about it: the color, the taste, the texture. It was just perfect. It was even better than the Peking duck he had eaten at the Chuanjude restaurant. He used wood from fruit trees to roast the duck, which added a pleasant fragrance to the meat, and red-top tricolor ducks tasted much better than Peking stuffed ducks. I guess it's true what they say, that ducks are fattest in late autumn, Mag said after swallowing the meat. They accumulated fat in autumn for winter. Ferris looked like something was on her mind as she ate. Why does it taste familiar? Could it be that I have eaten it before? One duck was clearly not enough to eat for 6 people, so when they were half done with the meat, Mag went into the kitchen and cooked something else. When the lunch hours were over, Yabimiya took a box of Yangzhou fried rice and left with Bablat. Ferris stayed on and practiced grilling kebabs. Mag walked over to Sally, who was cleaning the restaurant with her water-type magic. I have a favor to ask of you, Aisha, Mag said reluctantly. Sally turned to face him. What is it? It's totally understandable if you say no, Mag said, embarrassed. How do I say this? I'll help if it's in my power, said Sally. She had never seen Mag so ill at ease. You see, Amy's school is holding a parent-teacher meeting, and they want both parents to attend, so I'd like you to be Amy's mother. Mag felt so embarrassed that he wanted to sink into the floor. He had rehearsed the conversation in his head many times, but it was still so difficult to say it out loud. Hey! Sally blushed when she understood what he meant. She lost her usual calm and coolness and looked startled. No, not like that. I just wanted you to pose as Amy's mother and attend the parent-teacher meeting with me. It's cool if you don't want to. What do I have to do? Sally replied after remembering what a loving father he was. I'll help you if you think I can do it. Really? Mag's face lit up. Sally was the best person he could find for the job. He might have had to hire a wife if she had said no. Sally nodded. Yes. Thanks. But I don't know what you have to do, since it's also my first ever parent-teacher meeting. I don't think we need to do much, though. I'll ask them for more details. All right. Sally turned around and got back to her cleaning work. Streams of water caressed the leaves of the green plants, taking the last speck of dust away, but Sally looked a little distracted. The restaurant was not open yet, but already many people had come for dinner. The lines were getting longer by the minute. Have you heard? Mag is launching a new dish tonight. It's called Peking duck. Of course I have. I punched out early and got here as fast as I could. I don't want to miss out on the new dish. How does that duck head taste? Is it good? Harrison asked Amy as she sat at the door nibbling at a duck head. The inviting smell made his mouth water. It was not only Harrison, the other customers lining up outside were also attracted by the brown duck head. Their mouths started producing excessive amount of saliva at the delicious sight. Amy could barely hold the greasy duck head with her hands. She ate it like there was no tomorrow as she gave a blissful smile. It was absolute torture to the guests. They could hardly hold back their urge to rush over and take the duck head by force. Amy raised her eyes and nodded. Yes. It's so good. Do you want some? Harrison nodded, staring at the duck head expectantly. It had been bitten by Amy, but he didn't care. Then you can keep on wanting. Amy lowered her head and got back to her food. Harrison, the other customers, I should feel offended, but why am I smiling? Because she's so adorable? Maybe. I've never seen anyone so adorable while stuffing her face. Harrison sighed helplessly. If I didn't know better, I'd think she were eating the best food ever. I know the little game Mag is playing. He is using Amy to whet our appetite. Yeah, but there is nothing we can do about it. Yes, there is. I'm gonna eat a whole duck of his. The customers outside were chatting away to kill time. Miss Christie, you said you wanted to take me to a gourmet restaurant. Let me guess, is it Dukas Restaurant? An old man in a grey robe asked Christie while they travelled in a luxurious-looking carriage. I lived here for over 30 years, and I come visit every year. I know Chaos City better than you do. Of course you know this city much better than me, Lord Hyrule, Christie replied with a respectful smile. We're not going to Dukas Restaurant, and I don't think you've ever been to the restaurant we're going to before, because it hasn't opened the last time you were here. Hyrule James was a legendary businessman who had made his fortune in the leather business. He was as old and famous as Ian and Geoffrey, but his business empire was not in Chaos City, but in the Orc realm and the Roth Empire. Orcs were good at hunting. They provided 60% of the leather on the continent, of which 90% was sold by the James family. The James family couldn't have achieved such a high social status if not for Hyrule. After dozens of years of fighting for fame and fortune, Hyrule decided to retire and live out the rest of his days in Chaos City. Given how wealthy the James family was, you'd think it had a lot of money in Buffett banks, but no. Hyrule and Ian were not on good terms with each other. Rumor had it that Ian had something to do with Hyrule's leaving Chaos City and resettling in the Orc realm. However, they neither denied it nor confirmed it, which aroused many people's curiosity. If Christie managed to get the James family to deposit money in the Buffett banks, she would get a sizable bonus and possibly a promotion. She had met Hyrule a few years back, so as soon as Hyrule returned to the city, she called on him on the off chance that he still remembered her. To her surprise, the benign old man didn't just grant her an audience, he even accepted her invitation to dinner. It seemed Hyrule quite enjoyed Christie's company, which made her grow more confident of talking him into putting money in buffet banks. Christie had done her homework before visiting Hyrule. The old man preferred food to women and wine. He would, every month, make time to go to Rotu to eat when he lived in the Orc realm. That was why Christie had offered to take him to dinner before talking business. Hyrule had willingly accepted without being high and mighty. A newly opened restaurant? Hyrule asked, surprised. Is it even better than Duca's restaurant? You'll know when we get there. Christy smiled. Keeping me in suspense, hey? Now I can't wait to try the food there. Duca's restaurant might be the best in Chaos City, but it was nothing compared to some of the dining places in Rodu. Hyrule hoped the new restaurant was as good as Christy said. Christy drew back the curtain when the carriage stopped. I'm sorry, Lord Hyrule. I'm afraid we have to wait in line, she said after taking a look out of the window. When Hyrule turned to look, he saw two long waiting lines which had stretched far into the square. There were at least 100 people in each line. Mamie Restaurant? I've never seen so many people lining up in front of a restaurant before in Chaos City. In fact, he had never seen such a sight anywhere else. Master, I'll talk to the owner and have him let you in first, the coachman said respectfully, and was about to jump off the carriage. Christy looked anxious, but before she could say anything, Hyrule smiled, and said, Lev, it's rude to cut in line. This restaurant must be superb if so many people are waiting here patiently. I don't mind waiting in line as long as the food is good. Christy smiled, revering Hyrule even more. Some people were very approachable despite their high social status. If that coachman had tried to force his way into the restaurant, the two 10th-tier magic casters and Duke Abraham might have been annoyed, which was the last thing she wanted to see happen. After the carriage pulled over, Hyrule and Christy got off and walked towards the back of the waiting lines. As he got closer, Hyrule couldn't help but overhear the crowd arguing fiercely over a dish called tofu pudding. They looked as if they were going to punch each other in the face. What is tofu pudding, Miss Christy? And why are they arguing over it? Hyrule asked out of curiosity. Tofu pudding is a dish of Mamie Restaurant, Christy explained. It comes in two flavors, sweet and savory. People waiting in the left line prefer the savory flavor, and people in this line like the sweet flavor better. You should try it, it's very good. I see. It must be really good if it can make people argue like this, but I don't have a sweet tooth, so I guess I'll wait in that line. With that, Hyrule went to the left line. Christy didn't understand why some people would want to eat savory tofu pudding, but she never gave voice to her confusion. Tofu pudding was the other reason why Christy was here tonight. Last time she'd been here, she had eaten a tofu pudding which had rid her of the pimples that had bothered her for days, and that wasn't the only good news. She found her skin had become better too. The tofu pudding worked even better than magic potions when it came to skin problems, which naturally had surprised Christy. Every woman wanted her skin to be soft and smooth, so she felt the tofu pudding alone was worth the trip and waiting. At 5 o'clock, Mag opened the door and welcomed them in with a smile. Good evening, Mag, Christy said, grateful to Mag for his stinky tofu, which had helped her land a deposit from Duke Abraham. Right now, a group of staff from Buffett Banks were counting coins in the Duke's residence. They hadn't finished counting yet, but her superior had told her that her bonus alone would be more than what she had earned last year. Good evening, Miss Christie, said Mag. He still remembered this beautiful lady, and he had heard from Carla about how she had secured a deal from Duke Abraham with half a plate of stinky tofu. It was not an honorable way to secure a deal, but it was smart. Mag took a look at the benevolent-looking grey-haired old man who was walking in with Christie. That was when a few words went across Mag's head. Hyrule, male, 65 years old, a normal human, has palpitations and chest pain. A Peking duck and some pancakes will alleviate his symptoms. What? A strange look appeared on Mag's face. Since when have you become a doctor, system? The omniscient door has been updated with the restaurant, and now is able to detect what a body needs, and then recommend food accordingly, replied the system. Using food to cure diseases? Yeah, that might be a good idea. At least now I know which dishes I should recommend to each customer. A skinny man nodded at Mag, and went straight to the last seat in the corner. Vicenio, male, 30 years old, a normal human. Symptoms: weakness in the back and knees, mental exhaustion, impotence. Have 1 pepper steak and 2 Rigiamos every day for a week, and the symptoms will be alleviated. No sex in the meantime, or his health will get worse. Mag felt sorry for Vicenio. Hopefully pepper steak and Rigiamo will work as well as Viagra. He then turned around and made for the kitchen. He had another busy night ahead of him. The new dish is so expensive, 2,000 copper coins each. Almost as expensive as a grilled fish. Looks like I can't eat it tonight. The picture is so inviting, though. The skin is shiny brown. How do they do that? It's even more tempting than the roasted whole suckling pig at Duca's restaurant. It sure is expensive, but it says here that it's enough for 2 or 3 people to eat. How about we share a duck and then split the bill? Hyrule opened the menu and saw the picture of the Peking duck. If the real thing is just like the picture here, then it might be even better than the roast goose in the roast goose restaurant in Rodu. Shall we order a Peking duck, Miss Christie? Sure, Christie said with a smile. She was confident Hyrule would love this dish because even that smelly dish called stinky tofu could make Abraham go crazy. I'd like a Peking duck. We'll have a Peking duck too. Excuse me, I'd like a stinky tofu. The guests placed their orders one after another. Some people found the Peking duck too expensive, some chose to see the real thing first, and some chose to buy a duck together. Orcs, demons, humans, and dwarves shared a table all the time here in Mamie restaurant, but never once had they chosen to buy a dish together. This was a thing that probably had never happened anywhere else before. Hyrule looked surprised. I've never seen anything like this before. Interesting. Then his eyes found Mag, who was cooking in the kitchen. Such a young cook. I wonder how good he is. The system had improved the oven, making it capable of cooking 10 ducks at once, and it took only 20 minutes to roast each batch. Mag wheeled the dining cart out of the kitchen and stopped at Krasu's table. He then put pancakes, sweet bean sauce, spring onions, and cucumber sticks in front of him. Why is Mag serving the dish himself? Yeah, that's strange. Maybe he wants to show us the proper way to eat it. They craned their heads to get a better look of what was on the cart. Here's your Peking duck, Lord Krasu, enjoy, Mag said as he opened the cloche, revealing a roast duck whose skin was shiny brown. Mag hadn't activated the molecular isolation system yet, so the wonderful aroma drifted freely around the room, making everyone's mouths water. Hyrule's eyes went round as he stared at the roast duck. It smells much better than the roast geese in the roast goose restaurant. That's really amazing. The roast geese in the roast goose restaurant were famous throughout Rodu, and Hyrule used to go there every 2 months or so. He had never thought a roast duck would smell better than a roast goose. Looks good, Krasu said, but how should I eat it? With my hands. Mag shook his head with a smile. No, then he put on disposable gloves and picked up the knife and duck. I'll slice it up for you. As Mag moved his hand, meat slices came off the duck quickly and landed neatly in a row on the plates in front of Krasu. Meat from different parts of the body was being put onto different plates. All the pieces were of the same thickness. A short while later, only a skeleton was left. Mag's superb knife skills amazed everyone, causing their excitement and anticipation to grow. You can eat it with the sweet bean sauce, but the proper way is to wrap the meat, spring onions, and cucumber sticks in a pancake, Mag said after cutting off the duck head. I give you 10 points for your performance, Krasu said, giving him a thumbs up. He then wasted no time picking up a piece of duck and dipping it in the sweet bean sauce. He awkwardly rolled the meat, a spring onion stick, and a cucumber stick in a pancake and stuffed it into his mouth. Krasu's eyes went wide as he chewed on it. The pancake was soft and a bit chewy, the meat was greasy but not too greasy, and the spring onion and cucumber stick were so refreshing. This duck is heavenly, Krasu said after he swallowed. Mag could hear other customers swallowing saliva. Christy looked happy when she saw the excited look on Hyrule's face. It seemed she was getting closer to her goal. Mag's little show and the roast duck are well worth the price. I'd like a Peking duck. Me too, Miss Mia. They hurriedly placed their orders for fear that the Peking ducks might sell out. So many people like Mag's character as well as his cooking, Ferris whispered as she looked at Mag's back. One day, I'll become as good as Mag. Although Mag only needed 2 minutes to carve a roast duck, there were 100 ducks, and he would have to spend over 3 hours on slicing ducks. He decided to have Ferris master this skill as soon as possible. Here's your Peking duck, enjoy, Mag said as he placed several plates of duck meat in front of Christy and Hyrule. Thank you. I'm sure I'll enjoy it, Hyrule said as he looked up at Mag. Before today, never once had a chef done such a thing before him. He couldn't wait to try it. Mag nodded and wheeled the cart back into the kitchen. All right, let's dig in, Hyrule said to Christy. Coming here with you today is the wisest decision I've made recently. His eyes went wide when he put a piece of duck into his mouth. Hyrule didn't eat it with spring onions, cucumber sticks, or a pancake. Just a thin piece of duck. The moment his teeth sank into the crispy skin and tender meat, an amazing taste swept across his tongue. The pleasant smell of wood from fruit trees made him feel as if he were in an orchard. I've tried all the restaurants of any popularity in the Orcs territory and Rodu, but I've never eaten anything so good. Hyrule said, his voice excited and joyous. The Roast Goose restaurant claimed to be the best at roasting geese. Their roast geese, which were priced at 500 copper coins each, might have won many people's hearts, but they couldn't hold a candle to this roast duck. Never thought I'd eat something so good here in Chaos City. Let me try the sweet bean sauce. Hyrule dipped a piece of duck into the sauce and put it into his mouth. The sauce was thick and smooth, and tasted mildly sweet and savory at the same time. It went perfectly with the duck meat, giving extra flavor to it. The sauce didn't overpower the taste of meat, but enhanced it, making it even more flavorful. I never liked sweet sauce, but something about this sauce makes it a must for the duck, Hyrule commented to Christy. Mag said the proper way to eat it is with spring onions, cucumber sticks, and pancakes, Christy said as she carefully placed a duck roll she had just made on a plate and pushed it gently towards Hyrule. Thanks, Miss Christy, Hyrule said. He felt like she was growing on him. His oldest granddaughter was of an age with Christy, but she rarely visited him, let alone make duck rolls for him. He picked it up, the pancake translucent in the lamplight. He could even see the 2 spring onion sticks and 2 cucumber sticks neatly placed on the meat. Hyrule looked at it for a moment before eating it. The pancake was warm, soft, and a bit chewy. The spring onions and cucumber sticks were fresh, crunchy, and refreshing. What an unusual combination of flavors! This dish is amazing! Hyrule almost jumped up in excitement. The 3 different ways of eating the duck afforded him 3 distinct and enjoyable experiences. The Peking duck had blown his mind so much that he found his stereotype about the food in Chaos City had been broken. This is so good! Hyrule made another duck roll himself, and ate it with an elated smile. Christy also took a graceful bite of the duck roll she had just made. Delish! Christy smiled so much that her eyes almost closed. She had prepared herself, but she was still stunned. This duck is out of this world. Mag is such a talented chef. This is simply unbelievable. The customers were full of praise for Mag's cooking and his knife skills. Mag couldn't get enough of their praise, but then again, who didn't love praise? Excuse me, I'd like a Peking duck. I'm so sorry, sir, but we've sold out, Yabimiya said with an apologetic smile. Please come back tomorrow night. Yet the customer was pretty persistent. Mag, he called out, it's still early, why don't you make another batch for us? I'm sure there are enough people to buy 10 more ducks. The customers who wanted to order a duck looked to the kitchen, wondering if Mag would grant him his wish. Mag turned around and smiled. I'm sorry, sir. I want to cook more for you, but right now we are only able to prepare 100 ducks every day. We'll try to prepare more in the future. Such an interesting owner. I wonder if he'll let me have another tofu pudding, Hyrule said as he put down his spoon, looking at the empty bowl before him. I'm afraid he'll probably say the same thing, replied Christy. She wanted another tofu pudding too. Hyrule looked surprised, and then smiled. It's rare to find such a devoted chef these days. Yeah, Christy agreed. He is so different. There was a sparkle in her eyes as she looked at Mag's back. Since we're not entitled to more of the amazing food here, I guess we should leave now. Hyrule paid the check and walked out with Christy. This is the best meal I've had since I returned. Thank you, Miss Christy. Christy smiled. No, I should thank you for treating me to such a wonderful dinner. You're a good kid. I wish you were my granddaughter. Walk with me around the square if you have nothing better to do. Full dark had fallen by the time there were only a handful of people waiting outside. They had to be avid fans of the food here if they could wait for so long. Mag could satisfy most of the fans now that the restaurant had grown bigger. Ding! The door opened. Sally was struck dumb when she looked up from the table she was cleaning and saw who it was. Elliot looked surprised when he saw Sally in a kipao holding a tray full of dirty dishes, but only for a moment. He regained his composure and smiled at Sally. Excuse me, are you still open? Yes, we are, Yabimiya said hurriedly when she saw Sally standing there like a statue. Please take a seat wherever you like. When Elliot sat down and started to browse a menu, Mia nudged Sally and asked in a whisper, "What's wrong? Are you okay? Shouldn't she be happy to see another elf?" I'm fine." Sally collected the rest of the dishes on the table absent-mindedly, and turned to leave for the kitchen. She must have turned too fast, though, because the dish stack moved and fell off the tray. Sally was caught by surprise. She had only made such a mistake as this when she first started working here. Babla was carrying a tray serving food. When she saw the dishes falling from the corner of her eye, she stuck out her index finger and raised it. The plates stopped before they hit the floor, and then flew back onto Sally's tray. Babla winked at Sally as she walked by her. "Be careful." Sally nodded and started for the kitchen again. A 7th-tier spatial magic caster? How did the owner here manage to hire 2 7th-tier magic casters and a half-dragon? Elliot thought curiously. Sally went into the kitchen and closed the door behind her. She put down the tray and strode over to Firis, who was watching Mag cook. "Aisha, what are you?" Firis started, suddenly nervous. "Shh. Keep your voice down," Sally whispered. "The head of the Brewster family is outside. I believe he is coming for me, but if he saw you, he'd probably take you too." Mag raised his head and glanced at them, a hint of sadness flashing across his face. Sally is leaving. The elves were drifting towards a civil war after the Elven Queen went into seclusion and Irina was deposed. It was an open secret that Borg was plotting to become the first male monarch in Elven history. Helena, meanwhile, was trying to crown a new queen. Sally was the first on her list. Few elves knew that the new Elven princess, and possibly the future Elven queen, was working as a waitress in a restaurant in Chaos City. Mag had known that someone would come looking for Sally, but he hadn't expected them to come so soon. It would be almost impossible to find a waitress as good as Sally again. The elves might never forgive him if they found out that the old Elven princess was his daughter's mother and the new princess was one of his waitresses. Mag wasn't worried that Elliot would take Firis away by force. He wouldn't dare to lay a finger on the girl who had been brought here by Alex. Besides, he didn't want too many people to know he was here. Firis looked frightened. She peered out and then looked at Sally. "Are you going to go with him?" She had been suspecting, from the day she met Sally in the restaurant, that she had run away from home, because from what she had learned, Sally should be in seclusion. And now she had been found. The head of the Brewster family had come to take her back himself. What choice do I have? He has seen me. Sally gave a sad smile, put the dishes in the dishwasher, and walked out with the tray again. When Elliot saw Sally clean Abel's with water-type magic, he felt relieved and happy. The Sally he had known had been too rebellious and stubborn to do anything he told her, but now it seemed she had become better-natured and more easygoing. He had thought he would lose his temper when he saw her, but strangely, he was not angry with her at all. She has stayed here for several months. What's keeping her here? Elliot wondered. She looks nothing like the girl that ran away from home months ago. Sally had calmed herself down. She didn't avoid Elliot's eyes and cleared the tables methodically as always. It's my first time here. Any recommendations? Elliot asked with a smile when Sally walked past him. Taken by surprise, Sally stood there for a moment before turning around. She looked him in the eye, surprised at his calmness, and then walked over to open the menu. How about the pepper steak? And we have beer if you'd like some. Okay. I'll have a pepper steak and a glass of beer. Sally nodded and walked to the kitchen. Soon Elliot found himself staring at a steaming steak and a glass of bubbling beer. His eyes widened when he smelled the aroma of the steak.